Hi, everyone. This is Kat Corchado from Sisters in Service. Today's interview is Melissa Washington, CEO of the Women Veterans Alliance and a powerhouse when it comes to connecting women veterans. You may already know her, so I hope you'll tune in. At the same time, I want to thank you for listening and hope that if you like what you hear, you will hit the subscribe button and forward this podcast to someone that could benefit from it. Okay, on to the interview. Hello, and welcome to another segment of Sisters in Service. I am your host, Kat Corchado. Our guest today is Melissa Washington, a Navy veteran, CEO, and founder of the Women's Veteran Alliance. She is an entrepreneur, speaker, author, and award winner who is connected to women veterans across the nation. She comes from a long line of veterans in her family, to include her husband, a Marine veteran who served in combat in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and Operation Iraqi Freedom. Her father, who is a Vietnam veteran, is a Bronze Star recipient, and her grandfather is a World War II Army Air Corps/Air Force veteran who flew 37 missions over Germany. He is also the recipient of the Bronze Star and the Air Medal. She has also been featured on television with ABC, CBS, and Fox News, The Dr. Phil Show, Lifetime Channel, and more. Sisters in Service, help me welcome Melissa Washington. Melissa, welcome to Sisters in Service.
Thank you, Kat. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm very excited to be on part of your new endeavor.
Well, thank you. I read your bio and I was like, oh my gosh, I some of this I didn't even know. You're so like down to earth and everything where you could just be like, I'm only taking autographs on this day, and I'm only
But trust me, I got people lined up that want to be my manager.
and I'm also proud to be, a part of a women veterans organization where we collaborate a lot together. I've attended a lot of Melissa's webinars that she does. But I'm also proud to, I think, call you my friend, and colleague in this endeavor. So, Melissa, tell us, you're a Navy veteran. Did you pick the Navy or did the Navy pick you?
Well, for the most part, the Navy picked me. When you go to the recruiting station, they've got all the branches of services right next door to each other.
Of course.
Um, and the Marine Corps, they had the pull-up bar, which I had to easily bypass that one because I would not have passed that. And the Air Force, they weren't nobody was there. And then of course, the Navy's like, well, come on in and talk to us. And so that's where I landed. And they of course, like any other recruiter, they share with you all the stuff you can do and be. And so I signed up. Nobody believed that I signed up for the military. I was a year in community college, getting my degree in early childhood education because I was going to be a teacher. And I joined the Navy. And I'll never forget the senior chief who recruited me. He says, I've never recruited a girl. And he was very nervous because, we would meet at Sizzler for lunch because it was across the street from the recruiting station. I mean, this dude
Mhm.
was like a sweat. He was nervous.
Aw,
It wasn't bad. It was just, he was nervous.
nervous. Yeah. Wow. So I would think that being in the military is just part of your destiny, that you were going to do some sort of service in the military, not necessarily Navy, but it was just part of your destiny. I mean, look at your family line of veterans in your family. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it wasn't one of those things where, growing up, I'm gonna join the military. I mean, I
Right.
saw the negative effects that it had on my dad from his time, serving in Vietnam and all the stuff he's gone through. So it wasn't one of those, but it was the plan, and I followed the plan. And if I didn't, I wouldn't be here talking to you today.
Right. A funny story. I almost went in the Navy. So my dad is was active duty. He's retired Air Force, and I'm retired Air Force. But before I went in the Navy, because I thought, wow, their dress whites are amazing. And the recruiter knew me. He goes, "Your dad was Air Force, right?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Stay in your lane, honey."
Oh.
I was like, "Yeah, that kind of makes sense." He goes, "You want to be on a ship for this amount of time." He goes, "Stay in your lane." So I did. So I went in the Air Force like my dad. Uh, so I always ask this of female veterans: what was your favorite assignment and your least favorite assignment while you were active duty?
So I'll start with the least.
Okay.
That was my well, it's the least, but there's a good thing that came out of it. But my least was when we went to our A school, which is your school you go to after boot camp,
Mhm.
and it was in Meridian, Mississippi. And I grew up in California in a very diverse community, um, and to go to a place where you'd probably see like on a TV show or TV and see that it's real,
Yes.
the racial
Culture
tension,
shock.
yeah, big time. And this was 1991. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a clear divide. I mean, whether you're black or white, I mean, it just was
Very apparent.
very much so, very much
Mhm.
so. So you just stay on the base, and then they close the base, or because there was a KKK rally, and
Right.
it's just one of those like, okay, I don't want to be stationed in the South. I don't.
Right.
Um, and of course, when you're get ready to graduate, they give you, of course, I wasn't the top of my class, but I was up there, but they give you your choice of
Mhm.
duty stations. And I chose a ship out of Little Creek, Virginia.
Right.
But to go back of what happened in Meridian, Mississippi, that's where I met who would be my husband.
Oh,
We've been married now 26 years, and
congratulations.
thank you. So we met in Mississippi. He was in the Marine Corps, and of course, I was in the Navy, and I went my way, and he went his way, and then a couple of years later, we reconnected.
It was destined. You guys
It
were
was
meant
just
to be together.
yeah, a lot of craziness, but I don't I was stationed on two different ships, so but I was fortunate enough to go on a 6-month deployment on each of those ships,
Mhm.
which I've met people in the Navy that it had never been on a deployment
Yeah, I
on a
have
ship.
too.
So,
Yeah, I have
yeah,
too.
and it was real funny because this one guy, I was on a panel a few years ago, and this one guy, he had just retired from the Navy, and he was kind of cocky, blah blah blah, and he was so he everybody's introducing themselves, so he introduces himself before I do, and he retired without even seeing being on a ship. I mean, he went on it, but not stationed on a ship. And
Yeah.
so then I got to go. I'm like, well, let me spread some sea salt on you, um,
Here you go.
for my short time. But even though my time wasn't, it was just it was a lot happening. I mean, 6 months to the Mediterranean, and then
Yeah.
coming to the West Coast, and then doing a 6-month deployment there. And this is when the Persian Gulf, everything was still hot over there. So I spent Christmas off the coast of Somalia
Mhm.
in '93 during that whole time. So it was so I don't know if really a duty station, but I guess the
Yeah.
different ports and the opportunity and the things you get to see as a 19, 20, 21 year old that most people may never see. Um,
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, I thought I wasn't born into the military, so my dad was already in when I was born, and I thought, you move somewhere every 3 to 5 years. That's just what you did. And, now that I think about it, I feel like I was really fortunate because as a child, I got to see so many countries that a lot of kids never get to see, and I got to live that. So, I think I was very fortunate, on the one hand that I got to see those types of things. So there's some upsides, to
oh,
being,
there is.
military, and the downside is I could not tell you who I went to first grade with. I could tell you that.
Yeah.
Or second or third or 10th.
But you remember
But
the experience, right?
yes,
And that's
absolutely.
and I feel too people that have served in the military, we look at things differently because we've experienced and seen things differently. I
Yes, I
mean,
totally agree.
who would think you'd be, on the deck of a ship, just, such a young age, and, having, access to weapons or shooting off the, um, the and I'm drawing a blank, but we do stuff out at sea and stuff, and it's just
Yeah,
it's it's such a different culture, and that's why people that have never served will never understand that
exactly.
culture that we have, regardless of what branch, because you come embedded in that culture,
Right.
uh, and it's different. That's just the way it is, and I don't. I think people try to relate to us, but they can't because they haven't
They
experienced
haven't experienced it.
it, right?
Exactly. I
It's
totally understand that. Yes.
and so that but it's again, it's I had a positive experience um,
Mhm.
in the military.
Oh, yeah. I did
I would
too.
do it again as long as I got to be in my 19-year-old body, not my almost
Oh,
50
yeah,
body.
that. I got to, go home and see my mom, and we were on an Air Force base, and I just looked around, and I had, texted my husband, I go, "I miss this." And he goes, "Really?" I said, "Why is that so?" And he says, "Well, you did 20 years." He goes, "Of course you're gonna miss it, as part of your life." But it was just like, "Oh, my people, okay."
Right? It is. It's just something
It
that
is.
they embed in you. I mean, when you go to basic training, they break you down and build you back up. And those are just things
Exactly.
that whether you say certain things or you stand a certain way or position your belt a certain way or choose, it's just something that's part of who we are.
Right.
And yeah.
I totally get that. So, you started the Women Veterans Alliance. Why did you feel there was a need for this? What did you feel was missing or was needed for women veterans?
Well, initially, I didn't realize the need until I started it. I came from, working in corporate America, and I live in the Sacramento area, but I was looking for an opportunity to connect with other women veterans in a more of a professional setting. I was in other women networking groups. I'm like, okay, there has to be something. So I had called around, and at the VA there was a MST group. I'm like, that's not what I'm looking for, and I was
Right.
not looking for the traditional VFW, American Legion, hall environment. That just honestly, that's just not me. Even though I'm members of the organizations. But so my starting it as, I guess, in a sense, first of all, my need to want to connect to other women. Um,
Yes.
and I knew a lot of women veterans. I teach LinkedIn classes. I'm sandwiched between two Air Force bases, Beale Air Force Base and Travis Air Force Base. And before I started this, and I still do, I still teach LinkedIn classes at the Air Force Base. So I still kept that, that connection to the military, but there wasn't anything out there. So December 2014, I put a post on Facebook and I said, "Hey, I'm getting this group together. Who's interested? We're gonna meet at El Torito's in Sacramento." And that's what it was. So I knew some of the ladies, and then some others were referred by somebody else. And there's about 20 of us. Pretty much none of them knew each other. But every time and I'm already getting the goosebumps. Every time I think about that night, here we
Mhm.
are. We're in this Mexican restaurant, and then they give us an area. It's not completely like closed off, but this is this long table, right?
Right.
And we're there, eating, drinking. We're just shooting the shit. If you have to bleep that out, but it's like one of those things, right? We're just everybody, and there's officer enlisted, all branches, and everybody's like, wow, this is something that I needed for this, and it's like, okay, and that's where it started. And I tell people this was just a hobby. This was, I had my own speaking business. I just launched my book the previous year. I'm like,
Right.
I can get women together, once a month for dinner and find a speaker. And then it kept growing and growing.
Wow.
It was just one of those months. So we agreed, okay, let's meet the third Thursday of the month. And then
Mhm.
they just kept coming. Um,
And it was
so,
organic. It wasn't like something you're like, "Yeah, let's just do this," and then all of a sudden you're like, "Okay, oh crap, it's getting bigger."
it is, but it was so interesting because I mean, one of the ladies came and she was serious. She says, "I thought I was the only woman veteran in Sacramento." I mean, she was like dead on serious. And but that's how she felt.
Yeah. Well, I think
Uh,
that's how a lot of women feel. I mean, that's one of the things that women are dealing with even today is that feeling of isolation because women don't self-identify. So if I'm talking to you and you don't have anything on or you don't say anything that signals that you're a female veteran, I would never know. And so that's why I feel like, what you're doing and what other organizations are doing is still so needed today.
oh,
And
definitely.
yeah.
And I didn't realize again when I started the need, and then I realized the need because I'm here talking to these women, and of course, we all share similar experiences. Some of us have very different experiences, and just to hear and to see and to listen to women and their stories and their struggles and where they are, and they're a lot of them, are working or they're going to school or they're owning their own business or they're, might be looking for some help. But it's just we are a reflection of society, right? Of
Yes.
people. So, and then again, being in Sacramento, again, being a very diverse area as well, in community. So I kept going with this, and it was just one of those things. And I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I mean, I was like, okay, what can we do? So it became okay. Now let's have official name. Now I got to get a website. Now I'm gonna get Facebook, right?
And it
So
just kept growing.
it did. And then it's like, okay, now I got to get a logo. So I had to get, so it's all these things. And it's like, um, but how do you fund something like this? Because there's a
Exactly.
cost. I mean, even though
Yes.
people, whether it's, I mean, even nonprofits, they're business. So I'll just say, just any business, right? Whether your tax entity is nonprofit or not, it's a business. So you have to set it up and I was already in. I was
Right.
already jumped in. I was already in the deep end. Not bad because I can swim, but I was in. I
Right.
couldn't I couldn't get I couldn't get out. I mean, I could have and just stopped and say, okay, I'm done. But it's like, how can I continue to do what I do, but also how can we make this so it's a sustainable organization that can continue to help women locally, but also to the need nationally? Because here are these women, they're telling the other women that they serve with, oh, we're doing this and we're doing that. Um, with that. So that was
Right.
just, honestly, if I put a business plan together to do this, I probably would not have done it. Just looking at, okay, how do we make money to do this?
I know. You're like,
Honestly,
whoa, let me put this over on the side.
yeah. But I was so into. I'm still. I mean, I get up every morning and it's like I serve. I mean,
Yes.
I'm here. God put me on this earth. He gave me all these other stepping stones and other experiences and other things that I've experienced in my professional military, life to
Yes.
do successfully what I do today.
Right.
Because had I not had those experiences or those people that I've been connected to, I wouldn't be as
Would be no
successful.
Women Veterans Alliance.
Yeah,
There wouldn't be one.
absolutely. I've started other networking groups before, so I knew that. But this is this is a niche. This is a niche market,
Yes.
right? So we're
Yes.
like, how do you cater to a niche market? And one of the things too is in the beginning is people were trying to define my organization for me.
Mhm.
So and what I mean by that is where they want you to be like everything, right? They want you to solve
Right.
women veteran homelessness. They want you to solve military sexual trauma. They want you to, they want you to find, lower the unemployment rate for women veterans. It's just,
It's a lot.
there
It's
is,
a
it's like,
lot. Yeah.
I can't I don't say I can't do that, but that's not I need to stay in my lane, right? I need to just focus. What do I do well? I was a
Mhm.
recruiter for over 12 years and worked in human resources. I can help people find jobs and get connected and I've owned businesses. So
Right.
let's focus that and I'm an excellent networker. I'm did that prior to this. I can connect people. It's like someone wants to know someone, I'll connect you with them.
But I
So and
think
I
that's
think
where the magic is, Melissa. It's like you say you're not everything. The Women Veterans Alliance isn't everything, but through connection and through people connecting to you, you can actually help some of these women through your connections. You know what I'm saying? Like women
absolutely.
veterans helping other women veterans.
and that's where the collaboration comes in. It's looking for partners, that have expertise in those areas, so you can, connect women with that. So you're not saying, oh, call 1-800 whatever number,
Right.
where you can actually connect women with.
With a person. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I need help with my VA, my disability benefits. Okay, you're going to talk to this person. They're going to, sit down and go through this. Or I want to start a business. Who do I go to? Those,
Right.
or having issues. So I had to do what I know best, and that's where I don't have PTS or nor MST. So that's, I
Mhm.
think we should focus on what we've experienced or what we know. I mean, granted,
Right.
I can talk about that just more in a general sense,
Mhm.
but not as personal experience with
So do
that.
you feel that when women I still feel that even today there's a disconnect about women veterans from the time they leave active duty to becoming a veteran. Do you still feel that's true?
Yeah, even when I got out of the military, I didn't consider myself a veteran. My dad was a veteran. He was in Vietnam. Those are
Right.
veterans. The guys with the ball cap. That wasn't me. But also, my situation was a little unique. I literally walked off the ship. 30 days later, I married my husband, and then 30 days later, he deployed. I mean, that's the beginning of our marriage. Was a 6-month deployment. Um, which I trust me, I'm probably one of the few wives who enjoyed his deployments.
Yeah.
I'm just, I just get stuff done. Um,
So where do you see the Women Veterans Alliance 3 to 5 years from now?
that's a good question. I mean, if you would have asked me this 5 years ago, I wouldn't even say where we're at right now.
Right.
I mean, a lot of it has to do with still understanding the needs that are out there, because we can create programs and we can collect stuff, but if there's not a need, it's not a purpose.
Right.
So, looking at these last 5 years, I mean, it's all purposeful. Everything's purposeful of what I create because it's based on the need. But what
Right.
I feel we need to scale. There's 2 million women veterans out there, and that's not even including the active and duty and reserve ladies.
Right.
And even if you combined your organization, my organization, others, we probably haven't even hit 10% of that. Or maybe, you
Right.
know what I'm saying? So how can we get to scale to where we become that name, or just it doesn't even have to be my organization, but how can women veterans be on the top of that list when you do want to connect with women? So that's my biggest thing is, maybe we become a household name, or we just become known in our community, but we also need to be known outside of our community. Um,
Absolutely. I totally
with
agree
that,
with that.
because
Yes.
I had a mom email me the other day about her daughter. She was concerned. She was out of New York. I mean, she's like, I don't know. And I came across your website, and is this anything you could help me with? So then, I got her connected. But and that's what we need. We need to have organizations where they can help people that way. Because, and what I found, again, always listening to other people's, what they're talking about, or when I'm at different events and we may have a table and, you have other groups there. You
Mhm.
know, if you ask just the average civilian, oh, I'm a veteran, I need help, they'll say, what do they say? Go to the VA.
Go to Yes. That's
Okay,
exactly what they say.
seriously. So, how do we change the mindset of people? And that's not the right answer. Um, it's like, how do where do, or they might say, go to your VFW post. I'm sorry, but if I call over there, a lot of times they're referring people over to us. Um,
Exactly. I think too is, when I first moved to North Carolina and I started to get really knee deep in veterans organizations, and the majority of them were men.
yeah,
I mean, I was maybe one of maybe 2 or 3 women that were attending these luncheons and coffees and stuff, and I'm like, "Okay, this isn't working
no,
at all."
and it's
So, I
not.
totally get that, yes.
And we need to be part of these organizations. Don't get me wrong, we do need to be part, but they need to be accepting, and they need to be understanding that things need to change. And that also becomes when you're want to, post 9/11 vets is having,
Mhm.
opportunity. And I mean, honestly, and I've been to a lot of them. Some of them are just literally dying out. And they're
Yeah.
old. And the VFW, they had a state commanders conference in California a few years ago, and they invited me to speak, which I was very surprised. Um, so here I am standing up there looking at, maybe there was 4 women in there, maybe several people of color, and they're all just a bunch of old white dudes.
Yeah.
And many of them were kind of asleep when I was talking. So I had to hit
Yeah.
the podium, you know,
Wake
to
up.
kind of because to me, that means that says a lot right there. If you're representing your post or your area there, and there should have been a line of men after, because I always stay after. I speak, and I
Mhm.
always make sure I do that, or either I come early or stay
Yeah.
after. There
To
should have
answer
been a line
questions.
of men saying, you know what? How can you help us get more women into our post?
Right. You know what I found was interesting is I was, when I was doing a lot of research about, women veterans and the things that how they're slipping through the cracks, et cetera. And I was talking to a male veteran and I said, "Hey, did you realize that women veterans are, and I was going through this list." And he said, "No, I had no idea that was happening." And I'm like, "How is that even possible?" We're both veterans, but you guys don't even know what's happening with your sister veterans.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's just a lack of knowledge or they just don't want to know.
I I think a lot of it is they don't want to know, or they're just not in that space, right? So it's
Right.
just, and I'll even talk to some women veterans who have no idea who Vanessa Gillian is because they're just not in that
In
space.
that space, yeah.
But thankful enough, a lot of this stuff is becoming, even with the VA secretary, a lot of this stuff is becoming mainstream media, which I'm like, thank goodness, because I
Right.
see stuff, but the average person's not going to see it until it hits like the New York Times or Newsweek or one of those other publications, or you've got, Congress or senators doing stuff. But I just don't think people are aware.
Mhm.
When you hear the veterans, you're gonna talk about homelessness, right? You see that on the TV. You see the disabled vets with the on the TV. You hear about the suicide, but there's
Right.
so much other things. And again, that's where it's so critical,
Mhm.
whether it's me or other women going to speak to organizations. I mean, that was part of my 2020 plan,
Right.
which got,
Oops.
like, 'cause
That
I
came
tell
to a
you,
halt.
yeah, it did, and I know a lot of them started going online, but it took a while for a lot of these other, like, Rotary and other groups that I would speak at, to go
Mhm.
online but that was, we need to be in front of these civilian organizations so they can have, again, it's a mindset shift.
Yes.
It's
I
it's
totally
thinking
agree with
of
that.
what, now I planted the seed. So I
Mhm.
planted the seed to thousands of people, because I want them to think about when they see a woman and she's got an army t-shirt, maybe she's at Target or Starbucks or pumping gas or whatever,
Right.
that the automatic assumption, that's is going to be her husband's shirt, not her shirt. But now the seed is there, so more than likely she might say, "Oh, that's, it's an
Oh,
army
yeah.
woman veteran," or maybe I go and I approach her, thank her for her service. But we have to change that. We have to get out the negative um, stuff that's out there too about veterans.
Right.
And I know that stuff we have to share because it helps. You got to tug at the heartstrings and
Yeah.
get money in. But what can we do? And so I feel what my organization, what we're doing with, again, not the intent, but what's happened based upon need, is I feel we're preventing homelessness
Mhm.
because we can help women before they even get there, or maybe they're right there but they're already connected to us
Right.
somehow, or maybe
Right.
they're in the Facebook group, or maybe they're on our Twitter, but now they know there's someone there. Of
Right.
course, it's up to them to reach out, but if we can prevent that from happening, if we can prevent some one woman from killing herself, if we
Right.
can I feel woman veterinary and woven as well, you're giving women hope regardless of what the program is. There's that hope.
There's that hope, yeah. Well, I know one of the things that stood out for me when I was reading your bio is that you had collaborated with the James R. Morrison Photography for the What Does a Woman Veteran Look Like project. And the reason that stood out to me is because more and more women are being told by others that they don't look like a veteran.
Yeah.
Which sounds totally ridiculous, doesn't it? It's like, I don't under what do you mean? I don't understand. But tell us how that collaboration came about.
Absolutely. So I've known James and Mara, his wife, for prior to me even starting the organization. And we were at lunch. I mean, this is actually the first year that I started, and we were having a conversation because people have asked me again, when I go to speak, well, what does a woman veteran look like? Well, you know what? She looks like me. She could look like her. The my dad's like the poster child for Vietnam vet. I mean, he wears that hat every place he goes.
Yeah.
But that's what, if you look at my husband, you look at him, you're like, oh, he served in the, don't call him a soldier, because then he gets very offended. He called Marine soldier. But he has that look. I mean, the haircut, his different
Yeah.
demeanor. But what are we supposed? We don't all look like Demi Moore and GI Jane, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So that's the thing. Again, that's why we have to change that narrative in the way people look at us, because they don't take us seriously. Just like I had a friend of mine, retired Marine. She got challenged in a job interview. He said, "You didn't serve in the Marine Corps." And I'm sure this
Oh
happens
my
more often than not,
gosh.
where our time in the service is being challenged.
Yeah. That's such a
Um,
slap in the face too, you
it
know?
is, and
Slap
especially if they didn't serve.
I
That's even
know.
more,
You're like, "Wait
right?
a minute, what?"
That would be my first thing. Did you serve? Um, so we were talking about that, and he's a photographer, and he has his photography business. And he said, "Well, what if we photograph these women, but more so, what if we create these portraits of
Mhm.
women? So it's not just, hey, here's the background, and we're gonna snap your picture." And
Yes.
so he created. If you've seen them, they're portraits. They're taking their current, wherever they work, or whatever they're passionate about, their kids, their time in service, and they incorporated all these things into these portraits. But also, the women got to tell their stories.
Yes.
And so that was initially started just as a portrait display, then became a book. So we now have two books. There's a there total, so far 20 women in these two books. And of course, with 2020, our plan was to photograph 10 more women. And we had them all lined up. We had to push that back till next year because we want to get the 30 and make it into one book. And just making sure we're showing the diversity of women. So that portrait display, I mean, it's been on different colleges. Last November, for 2 weeks, it sat in the Sacramento City Hall Rotunda. And what
Wow.
was really cool about that is one of the kids, of the mom that was in there, they had a field trip. So he got to show all the kids in his class his mom, because her picture
Nice.
was there.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
So it's just impactful. We were at the state fair last year, and had different displays, and we had some of the women that were featured in there to be able to talk. So here's somebody, they're standing there reading the story, and then they look the picture, and then here's the real person. So they got to interact, and that's what we need. They need to see women, what they're doing, who they are, their challenges,
Right.
their accomplishments, and just all the good things, that because we continue to serve after we get out.
Yes.
Most Somehow, some way. It doesn't have to be a formal organization, but that's just embedded in us to continue to serve our community. That's why a lot of people transition into government work,
Right.
um, serving. So that's yeah. So that's our. So next year, hopefully, we'll have our next 10 women, and we have and I'm hoping she stays on. We have a World War II vet. She's 95. She was our
Oh,
first one to
man.
photograph in March. But again, we
Yeah.
had to shut everything down, so they couldn't
Oh, I would
photograph
love to
her.
talk to her, man. Just the stories, those women who served before us. That must be amazing, you
She
know.
and you could actually so I had our first unconference in 2016. She was actually one of our speakers. And it's on YouTube, her
Mhm.
clip of her talking, and she's this petite little lady, um, very rambunctious, and she's got, just some great stories to tell, when she served. Um,
So I know you mentioned being an author. Tell us a little bit about your book.
yeah, so my book, Get Back to Work. Um, so the reason I started the book, so I'll have to take it a step back of how I got to write the book. And let me tell you something. I hate to write. If you can just put me on Twitter, 140 characters or less, I could probably do well at. I could
Yeah.
talk, but just having to write. That was a challenge for me, just to write. But I felt I had the information, what I wanted to share. I wanted more people to see it because I felt it was something that is valuable to others. So in 2008, I got a promotion. My company relocated me from Southern California up to Sacramento to manage the Oracle account.
Hmm.
So we all know what was happening in 2008. I mean, the economy was going down, down, down.
Right.
And then in 2009, I got laid off there. So I'd only been in Sacramento like 5 years, like a year, and I only knew about 5 people. So that was a challenge because, your first year you're working, you're like working, you're not out there mingling, and you're just
Exactly.
trying to get the job done. And so I had that. And then I'm like, okay, I could find a job. I've been a recruiter. Well, Sacramento just dried up very quickly. So here we are, 2010. So 10 years ago, I'm like, okay. I saw this article in the paper about that the Employment Development Department was having a workshops for professionals. I'm like, okay, well, I think I qualify as a professional. So I got in, right, because you don't know. It's like, okay, um, got in there, and then started going to these workshops. Met some great people, and actually, some of them are still friends with today. But one of the things that they shared again, so think of this 10 years ago, is she had a slideshow about how to use social media to find work, how to
Hmm.
use LinkedIn, how to use Twitter, how to use Facebook. And it was very just general, generic. And I'm like, I know how to use LinkedIn. Like, I've been on it. So I started holding LinkedIn workshops at my dining room table for job seekers in 2010. I was still looking for work, still, unemployed. But one of the things I started to do was I started to network. So here I am meeting people, and this is why I'm able to do what I do, because I've met people before I even, started Women Veterans Alliance, even when I was
Right.
unemployed. I'm meeting these people. Then which led into my LinkedIn business, because I was doing training and I started charging for training, and then now people are paying me to speak, and so I'm traveling and doing this. But one of the things that I liked, again, networking, I'm like, let's do a job seekers group. So someone had started this active job seekers group in the area, and he wanted to start another one in the city. So I took it over, and we would meet the job seekers and, helping people. I mean, it was packed. I mean, this is, again, 2010. But
Right.
one of the things that every time they would always ask me, what do I need to do? What are the top 5 things that to find a job? Because a lot of them hadn't looked for a job in, a long time.
Right.
Um, and so I'd run off the list, and then I ended up printing the list. And the list is actually now in the back of my book, because that's where that started from, was the list,
Right.
is
Wow.
expanding upon the list. So I would say, "Are you on LinkedIn?" And it'd be like, "Link what?" I'm like, "Okay, well, you need to come to my workshop.
Link
We'll get
who?
you on there." And seriously, I mean, that's what they would be like. Okay, and then, we talk about, of course, about the resume, and then we talk about business cards, and then we just talk about just, you know, do you have your elevator pitch? So it's just these things that I would just continue to say, and then I'm like,
Right.
I can expand upon this and then put in a book, and then I can get more people to see. And it's not a big thick book, because I know it's like I was unemployed for almost 2 years. I mean,
That's a long time. Yeah.
I was working. I just
Yeah.
wasn't getting paid. I mean,
Right.
of course it's all, it's all paid for, for it. It's happening.
Right.
But it's one of those things where, okay, I don't want to write a big book again. I didn't like to write. So I just wanted something practical, and then at the
Yeah.
end of each chapter, it's like, things to do, and just so that way you can get something out of it. And I didn't want to talk, I feel work, and they're just, they're smart and savvy, strategies, because when you're in small business, and this is applicable to people in business,
Right.
You can pick up my book and you get the same strategies because it's the same thing. It's just you don't
Same
have a
thing.
resume, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
it's the networking. The longest chapter in there is LinkedIn, which I ended up actually right when not my employment unemployment was getting ready to run out, and
Mhm.
ended up connecting with somebody at LinkedIn and got hired there and worked at LinkedIn
Wow, look
doing
how that worked out.
it was it was that was meant to be because what had happened that year 2011 is I had LinkedIn gave me like a free ad to advertise my LinkedIn workshops. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna
Oh.
advertise and you could target. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing them in Sacramento. Well, just so happens the director of sales effectiveness lived in
Mhm.
the Sacramento area, and he saw it, and he's like, who are you? And we met for coffee. And then a few months later, I reached out to him and said, hey, how's it going? He's like, hey, would you be interested in working at LinkedIn? I mean, that's not, I'm like, okay, when do I start? He said, Friday.
You're like, "I'll be there. I'll be there Thursday."
Right? But what's really cool about this story, and when people are looking for work, they should always keep an open mind.
Yes.
They never posted that job. It was never posted on any,
Wow.
job boards or anything. They never asked me for my resume.
See, it's all I keep telling people, when especially, like my family and they're like, "Oh, I put my resume in," and I said, "The best jobs are the ones you get from someone you know."
Yeah, that right?
It's got nothing to do with an HR manager or going through the whole resume process and the interview. It's who you know,
Absolutely.
you
And I tell
know?
people a resume is just a piece of paper,
It's a
you
piece of
know?
paper, yeah. And there are a lot of people that sound amazing on paper. Amazing. They like walk on water. And then then they get to the job and you're like, "Okay, is this the same person?"
Right? You're like, well, probably paid somebody to write the
I
resume.
know, right. So,
So,
Melissa, one last question.
yep.
What are 3 things you would advise a woman veteran to do leaving when she's leaving service today? Like, before she leaves service, what 3 things would you tell her to do?
So, well, one, she should be on LinkedIn. That should be 1, 2, and 3.
I love that segue.
Seriously, she should have her
Okay.
profile out there, right? And have it ready for the job that she's looking for and have, all of her keywords in there, have her professional photo, not her photo in uniform.
Right,
Start connecting with people. People say, well, I don't know who to connect to. Well, connect with people you work with. I mean, if you have vendors or contractors that you might work with, on the base or family members, because you never know who, Uncle Joe might know, even though Uncle Joe may not be working, but he might know someone. So start making those connections with people
right,
and then get in these different Facebook groups. Like LinkedIn has the Veteran Mentor Network group, which is a very large group. There's a whole bunch. But say maybe you're interested in getting into project management. Well, guess what? There's PMI groups there. Join those groups. You've got to
right,
start getting out there and getting that information.
right.
Making a list of companies you're interested in working for and start connecting with the
With
people
those
that work at
people.
those companies. Do it
That's
all
not the
before you
first
get
time I've heard that, or the 2nd or the 5th. So, that's legit,
it's it's
and getting in those circles and letting people know who you are.
well, and then LinkedIn offers a free version. You get the premium. So you can subscribe to the the upgrades. So you're going to get all the
Right.
extra premium features on there.
Mhm.
I mean, that's to me, that's just like key because also too, you connect with people. Even it helps with relocation. You could say, okay, I'm getting out of military in Texas and I'm moving to to Iowa or something. Well, you know what? I mean, Facebook can help you to people, but also on LinkedIn, you can say, hey, I'm
Right,
relocating to Iowa. Does anybody know any businesses or people or I'm looking for opportunity. And it's I tell people it's not like you're looking for a job, but you're looking for those connections
right.
there. So that's my 1, 2, 3.
So, where can people find you? Where can they find out more information about the Women Veterans Alliance if they want to look it up? Can you give us some
Yeah.
contact info?
Absolutely. So we are on all social media platforms: Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram. We're on all of them. YouTube, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. And honestly, I just tell people just Google Women Veterans Alliance. I 100% guarantee it will pop up.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, it will.
or Google my
I've done
name.
it.
Google my name. I'm the blonde. If you see it in different pictures, but yes. Google
Well,
is your friend.
Melissa, thank you so much for being
You're
a
welcome.
part
Yeah.
of our show today. And I so appreciate your time. I hope that everyone listening got some information that they can use, especially about LinkedIn. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Melissa and Women Veterans Alliance. So thank you so much for listening. Until next time, please take care of each other and we'll speak again soon. Do you find it difficult to come up with content ideas for your podcast? Or perhaps you've gotten stuck during an interview with a guest where you just have nothing to ask anymore? Try Poddex today. Poddex is the best all-in-one podcast idea generation tool. You get everything from episode ideas to interesting conversation starters for interviews, engaging discussions for your live streams, and even social media content ideas. With this tool, you don't have to spend weeks trying to come up with content for an episode or unique questions for your guests. Just shuffle the cards and pick one at random, hit the record button, and get started. Now you can make better content, have more fun while you're at it, and get your viral moment, all with Poddex. Head over to poddex.com and use code C4C.